The ability for customer success representatives and salespeople to be able to listen to their peers, have conversations, to be able to hear the objections, to be able to demystify the engagement, right? It accelerates people's onboarding like you would not believe. The automation that these tools allow and enable is also amazing. So let's say, for example, customer success example, we get product feedback all the time. We also get product feedback in sales, right? That is usually more of an objection. How do I get this information funneled to product, right? So that it's not just coming from the salesperson who wants to close the deal or CS who doesn't want to deal with customer issues.
Hi, Giorgia. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, so glad to be here. Ooh.
For those of you who don't know Giorgia Ortiz, she is an expert in Silicon Valley that focuses on sales enablement. And from a customer success perspective, our friends in sales are more important than ever to give customers that aligned journey throughout their experience with any product. And so today I'm really excited to have Giorgia on our show to talk about sales enablement and what that means when it comes to the customer experience.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I always say it's two sides of the same coin.
Exactly, I agree. So, Giorgia, before we dive into a few questions I have for you, can you just give us a little bit more about your career trajectory in sales enablement?
Absolutely. I started in sales back in 98, selling high volume printers for a Dutch manufacturer. And it was fantastic because we really sold up against the big names, Kodak and Xerox, and we were an unknown with a completely different technology. So it really instilled in me at a very early stage in my career the importance of really listening to your customer and understanding the problems that they have, because I was selling RC Cola, really, compared to Coca-Cola. So I started out in sales, and then the company that I was working for asked if I would move to the Netherlands to become an international sales trainer. As I moved up the ranks within sales, I was always a team lead. And so I just had a natural desire to always share everything that I learned, and that translated nicely into sales training. So my husband and I moved to the Netherlands in 2001, and we were there until 2006. And
Wow.
I was a sales trainer, traveled the globe teaching both skills training as well as product training to the International Sales Organization, and then moved into product marketing while I was out there. And so I was in product marketing for a few years, which was phenomenal because it really helped me understand the go-to-market strategy, in this case, from a manufacturing perspective. And it was just an incredible experience. Moved back to the US and went into business and field development for our company, and then moved out to California to help open up our West Coast operations. Um, the first entry into SaaS was actually in 2013 after I had my son. And that's really when I started working in San Francisco for the first time. And so since then, I have been really focused on sales enablement and also CS enablement as well. So one of the topics that I know we're going to talk today is this evolution into revenue enablement that we keep hearing, and why we're evolving into more of a really end-to-end support for the customer experience for the folks that actually engage with them. And so that's really what I've been doing here for the last 20 something years. And I'm currently the head of sales enablement at Lever, and enjoying, the work every day.
That's great. I use Lever at WalkMe, so I know the product, and I have to say I skipped the training and managed to figure it out on my own. So love the product. And I really appreciate that you mentioned you did product marketing as well, because often you'll see there's a misalignment between the personas that customer success is working with and then the personas that marketing is selling to and or marketing to. And when there's a misalignment between marketing, sales, and customer success, that's when I start seeing the breakdown in the customer journey. So I would love to just learn more about why is sales enablement so important to you, and now that you're dipping into customer success enablement as well?
Well, I think it's exactly what you said. When you have a team, a group, or even just an individual that is looking at both what the sales organization needs to support our prospects and what the customer success organization needs to support our customers, we then by nature look to create the trainings or the assets or the learnings that folks need in order to support the customers. And that means that we also liaison with marketing. Marketing obviously always has the, for the most part, outward facing, trying to get attention in the market, right? And then generally enablement will partner with product marketing. And product marketing is, again, a wonderful partner to help us translate what's coming out of product and what the field needs in collateral and messaging and decks in order to sell our product. If you just take that same idea, that process, and now apply it to what CS needs, if no one's asking those questions, right? Generally what will happen is one or the other group is having to create their own content.
Mm-hmm.
There's always someone that's doing the translation. And the same thing happens with partners, right? A lot of times the partner community gets the leftovers for what's being created for the field, and then someone's got to translate it for the partners. And so with the larger organizations or organizations that are a bit more focused on really supporting the different use cases, having specialized folks that can curate that information, in my opinion, just exponentially gives you return on your investment.
Yeah, that's great insight. I'm curious because I'm guessing the majority of people who will be watching this will be either revenue leaders or customer success professionals wondering, should I bring in a CS enablement leader or a CS operations? And I'm a big advocate of CS ops, CS enablement, especially as I mentioned, the lack of alignment across the customer journey. How do you see these two roles different when you think of customer success and sales enablement? Or it's the same?
Yeah, no, the way that I think about this is that you need to, this is my personal opinion, is that you need a head of enablement and you need a head of ops. And within these groups, you should have specialized focus to the business units that you're supporting.
Mm-hmm.
So CS ops, marketing ops, sales operations should roll under revenue operations. CS enablement, sales enablement, SE enablement, should roll under revenue enablement. And what that enables, I'm saying enables a lot, but what that helps is really breaking down the silos that naturally get created between all of these groups, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that anyone is purposefully creating silos. We're just all trying to get our work done. Mm-hmm. And unless you have someone that is looking and saying, oh, I see they're doing this, well, that's going to impact this group, right? And that's what, the head of revenue enablement would do for all training, so that you can also, by the way, leverage each other's learnings. Salespeople can learn so much from what CS is learning in engaging with our customers. And CS can learn a lot from sales in terms of what's happening in the competitive landscape, because at some point that account's coming up for renewal. And they know it, and so do our competitors, which means our competitors are going to come after that account. And is that CS rep who may be responsible for that upsell or that revenue number, do they know enough about our competition right? And I don't know that we really think about it that much. So I believe that those roles, ops and enablement, are incredibly important. And yeah, I think people should be, that companies really need to invest in those resources sooner than later. Not necessarily, you know, early on, you don't necessarily need a director, you know, or a senior director or a head, but you definitely need someone dedicated to that function. And sometimes they're a hybrid role, you know, like I was for many, many years as, you know, a salesperson that just had a knack and a desire to enable others. And so I was leveraged in that way. So it's not to say that you have to go and necessarily spend money. Look for the resources within your organization, because everyone has it. Every company has people like me and other colleagues that started out, you know, in our careers by just really, you know, loving the job and loving what we do and wanting to share it with other people.
I was going to ask you, at what stage should a company be thinking about sales enablement? But I believe that you kind of answered that. And I wonder if maybe a better question then is, what is the biggest mistakes you've seen companies make when it comes to sales and customer success enablement?
One, they introduce it late.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens, and what I've seen happen, is that the sales organization or the CS organization is just its own content creation machine. And it takes time, about a year, to unravel that behavior and to get the trust from the selling and the support organizations that you can support them, that you can create content that is not only going to serve them, but look better, that's going to be branded, and on time, right? And that you're going to deliver it and it's not going to be a bottleneck. It takes a lot of time to have to build that up. So that's one of the problems. They spend too much of their time doing non-sales related or CS related functions, right? Like we're always looking to improve efficiencies. So I think that's one of the issues I've seen. One of the others is just the tremendous amount of lost opportunity. If you have a chance to work on really understanding what best practices are, right? So in the beginning, you don't necessarily have a sales process. You don't necessarily know exactly what's going to work, right? So you think, well, what do I need enablement for? But if you have someone that can introduce basic fundamentals, there are fundamentals of selling that are absolutely universal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you at least have those in place, and then you have someone that is engaging with the salespeople, and maybe they're in the field with them, able to observe and then capture that information and begin to create that sales process. The analogy I would give is, you know, going back, my son is 8 now, and I remember when we brought him home, and I still have my notebooks where I just jotted everything down. And at some point I'm like, how do I know what the routine is? Like, and I'm Googling it. And then I realized the routine was right here in the notebook. I just needed to document what was, and then look for those common themes. And then that was the routine. And I think a lot of times we're always looking to the exterior for some third party process or this or that, when the reality is, if we just pause and look and observe at what the best salespeople in your organization are doing, document that. I mean, at the end of the day, that was spin selling. They didn't invent spin selling. Spin selling was an observation of the best salespeople at Xerox, right? So it's not rocket science. And so sometimes I think we just need to slow down a little bit. And in high tech, you know, everybody's running, but you have to unravel a lot. So those are two things I think that I've seen, you know, companies make missteps in, because it's counterintuitive. I get it. I get why they do it. But it would be interesting if they were to do something different.
I think in customer success, especially speaking from that side, hiring a leader too late when they're drinking from the fire hose or there's a churn problem, that's very similar. And then another observation is not taking a step back and looking at the big picture. I think where I have not been as effective as I should have been in my career are the times when I was so in the weeds and not able to pull myself out. And so I think that's a common mistake, especially for first-time managers who just so much want to help their teams, but they're actually in the long run hurting them because they're not taking a step back and creating processes that scale. So I think that's really good feedback.
You made me think of something else in terms of what comes first. And even though I am a sales enablement professional, if I put on my selling hat, because I always view myself as a salesperson, the CS organization actually has to be, in my opinion, built out, or at least a step ahead in terms of the support that they have and the people that they have before the sales organization, or at least a little bit ahead of the sales organization. Because particularly early on when you're selling in a SaaS environment, if you don't keep those customers, it makes it really, really hard for the salespeople to keep selling. And so for growth, for scalability, in order to really capture the market, I think one of the other mistakes is waiting too long to really invest in customer success, because you have those customers and it's so much harder and so much more expensive to get new customers than it is to really support and serve the ones that you have and then grow with them, if you will.
That's a great observation. Thank you for adding that additional point. I want to ask you, for people who are considering hiring a customer success enablement manager, what are some key factors and technologies they should be thinking about?
So when it comes to enablement, whether it's sales enablement or CS enablement, my own personal bias is I think someone in these roles needs to have had that role. It's very hard to stand in front of salespeople if you haven't sold yourself. And I think, yes, to a certain extent, you have to have experienced, some element, so that you can really connect. And it's not for, I know plenty of successful people, but it's harder, a heck of a lot harder. So first and foremost, I think there's always opportunities to bring people in within the organization or bring them up into enablement if it's something that that is interesting for them. In terms of the technology, we are so lucky today to have the kind of technology that we have. So I would think that there are 3 key technologies that generally you want to have in place for enablement in general, whether it's CS or otherwise. One is going to be a central repository for all of your assets, content management system. And, I have my favorites that I've used over the years.
Share them.
Okay. Well, I love HighSpot. HighSpot's been a tool I think that I've used now over the last, 6 years or so, and mostly because it's robust and something that I, as sometimes team one, can manage myself. So when I was building out the sales enablement function for Coupa, and we were building out our Coupa University, I was team one, and we went from 0 assets, working in partnership with my product marketing lead. I was able to build over or really populate in HighSpot, hundreds of assets, and manage them and curate them. But more importantly, that's the back end part, the user experience and the customer experience. If you're a small company and maybe your brand isn't as well known, your ability to send information out in a way that is branded and in a way that makes you look bigger than you are, right? Because they always say on the web, you want to look bigger than you are, because that's how you start, engaging with people. And so I have to say HighSpot was great. Some other really good tools. And again, sometimes it's a look and feel. Seismic is another solid content management tool. And so is Showpad. So those are 3 right? And I was an avid Learncore user. Learncore is the second type of technology, which is more it's a light LMS, learning management system, more of an enablement LMS. Learncore was an enablement LMS that I, much like HighSpot, was able to build all of my onboarding curriculum, all of my training, continuing education by myself without an instructional design degree, right?
Yeah.
So, and then Showpad bought them. So that's one of the other things that you're seeing a lot in the marketplace, Amelia, is the consolidation of content management and learning systems kind of coming together. So SalesHood, for example, they have both sales training as well as sales content and their own generated sales content. And then they'll partner with, industry experts. At Learncore, they had partnered with John Barrows. And I'm not sure who SalesHood partners with, but I know that they have ready-made content that
Mhm.
they can utilize. So those two things. And the third, which is somewhat relatively new to me over these last 3 years and is a game changer, which is Gong or Chorus, whatever you use. I've had Gong the last couple of years, and I cannot tell you um, the ability for customer success representatives and salespeople to be able to listen to their peers, have conversations, to be able to hear the objections, to be able to demystify the engagement, right? It accelerates people's onboarding like you would not believe. The automation that these tools allow and enable is also amazing. So let's say, for example, customer success example, we get product feedback all the time. We also get product feedback in sales, right? That is usually more of an objection. How do I get this information funneled to product, right? So that it's not just coming from the salesperson who wants to close the deal or CS that doesn't want to deal with customer issues. Product loves the voice of the customer.
Mhm.
So you can set up these wonderful little, vocal tags. So I've trained my entire organization when they're on a call and they get feedback that they want product to hear, all they have to say is official product feedback. And that snippet is captured and dropped into Slack, a Slack channel that product monitors.
I just love that. And I have to say I've used Chorus at length and had the honor of working with the Chorus team. So being able to have the deep insights and being able to see how they not only use their own product, but I could use it for customer success teams I was leading, just I agree has been a complete game changer for customer success enablement as well.
Absolutely. And they're great, great, great technologies, both of them. And it just depends on, in my case, I inherited the technologies as I've gone. And sometimes, often I also bring technologies on. But I think those three, to be honest with you, um, content management system, a learning management system, and the ability to record, you put those three things together and you basically have the single source of truth for
It's
both
like
sales and
CRM, like Salesforce or something, would you say?
Salesforce as a
Central source of truth.
table stakes,
Yeah.
right? But here's the thing: there's an entire ecosystem built around making Salesforce more user friendly,
Hmm.
right? Because reps hate putting stuff into Salesforce, um, and many times every company has a different iteration of Salesforce. Some companies built it up really well, others not so much, and so they spend so much time unraveling. So I think the way in which you engage them with Salesforce is we've implemented WalkMe. And so we create how to do quotes in Salesforce. We have these wonderful little shout outs and tips for finance so that reps know that, hey, a new law just passed. And so you need to add, make sure you have the address right because now sales tax is going to be added, right? And so there's different ways that you can use technology, but Salesforce is absolutely critical to us as a business because even if you have wonderful insight products like Insight Squared or Atrium or Clary, They're
Mhm.
all still working off of the information that's in Salesforce. They just, present it in a way that's easier for non spreadsheet report oriented analytics like myself to be able to actually run a report or look at a dashboard and pull insights that are useful, which I've been able to do now with this technology. Whereas before, it just running reports in Salesforce, it didn't click for me.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you. Absolutely, Salesforce is important. And you still have to do some work um, to make people or to incentivize people, salespeople and CS, to put the information in the system. You've got to ask the question, just like everything else that we do, what's in it for them?
Right. And I obviously am biased, having spent 3 years at WalkMe, how important, and I've seen the impact WalkMe has had for these sales and CS managers to be able to walk through Salesforce, close an opportunity without ever having to reach out to someone for help, because that just-in-time guidance in the platform is incredibly powerful. So
It
I would agree
increases
with
their
you.
efficiency. It increases their level of confidence. It reduces the amount of friction. The more
Mhm.
friction we can reduce, which is really the role of enablement. How do I reduce friction, right? Um, how do you reduce objections? You do your discovery and qualification really well, right?
Yeah,
And so an objection for me, then it just becomes an opportunity for clarification. I must have missed something, right?
right.
That's how I think about it. And so any opportunity we have in the enablement profession to reduce friction in the sales motion, in the support motion, in the handoff, that handoff is so incredibly important. And I think the reason why I'm so passionate about customer success is that as an enablement professional, I work with my customer success folks in the amazing tools that I use on a weekly basis. I couldn't tell you who sold me the system. I really couldn't. They're wonderful. I'm sure they're all great, but it's my success person that I really spend the time with. And that's who I'm thinking about, by the way, when I'm picking a solution is I can make any crappy tool work, but I really am going to look at who's going to be here to help me be successful with this tool. And it's made all the difference having that point of view.
Yeah, I will share. I've been using Salesforce for so long for my surveys, and recently have been working with a company, Modern Health, and they have Qualtrics as their survey platform. I was very hesitant to use the platform and was kind of fighting it because as humans, we're used to something, we want to keep using it. And I will say it's the customer success manager who has transformed my view of the platform, of potentially seeing it as this big, clunky thing that's been around for a long time, or maybe those 30-page hospital surveys you would get. I just think of Qualtrics. But my new view, as of a month ago, has been transformed, and it's because of the customer success manager and enabling me to be able to run these great surveys and get deep insights into the customer experience. That's made all the difference. So I would agree with that.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about customer success, is because I know the role that they've played in my professional
Mhm.
success, honestly. And so that's why I want to give back within my organization and make sure that I'm supporting this group that I appreciate so much, um, and really looking to move all of us from this idea of sales enablement or CS enablement. We need to understand this more. It used to be, or it could be, go to market enablement, or I'm seeing a lot more of revenue enablement. And I think if we're all aligned under this idea that we want to support the entire customer experience, and it's not linear. If you're doing it right, it should be circular, right? Because we don't want an end to that customer's, engagement with us. We need to keep building it. And there is there are elements of selling that whether CS folks like to do it or not, they end up doing it. They have to. Some companies have given their CS folks an actual quota that they're responsible for renewals. Others bring the sales rep back in. Everybody does it a little bit differently. So yeah, I'm a big fan of CS.
Yeah, I will say if you're in a reoccurring revenue model company and you're in customer success, you're in revenue.
Yeah.
There's no way about it around it.
And well, you probably have more experience than me, Amelia, but I would think that a lot of times folks, and maybe it's because the way that we're organized, but many times CS reports under like the support function, and it can be confusing.
Mhm.
I would love to see at some point, some kind of, I don't know, merging, or that's where I believe revenue enablement just helps a lot. Because if you can at least have one area that brings these two groups together in something as neutral as training and support and documents that help and cross collaboration, that goes a tremendous long way to improving all of our internal processes and communications, because it all comes down to building relationships.
I love that idea about revenue enablement and keeping the sales and customer success under that. I don't think enough companies are doing that, and I think that's a trend we'll see in 2021. So I think that's a really good way to wrap up this session. But is there any last note that you want to share with the audience?
Only that I am grateful for the conversation, and I am so excited for 2021. I think that, 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. I also think that there have been tremendous opportunities for growth and for self-reflection and for realignment to the things that are most important to us, both professionally and personally. And I think that in supporting our customers this past year, I know that there'll be change next year in terms of once we get back to whatever this new normal is, it's not going to be what it was. All of our expectations in terms of how we engage and the level of empathy
Mhm.
that we can absolutely lean into in a professional environment.
All right, Georgia, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.